Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the TBD Motorsports podcast. Here we have a very special Tuesday night show. Normally, we're Monday nights at 7, but had some circumstances beyond our control come up, so here we are on a Tuesday night. I'm your host, John Ross, as usual. I've got with me Mike Dollard and Scott Seaman, as usual. And we have a special guest for the show tonight. We have fellow B-Mod racer, Nick Haynes. Nick, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Welcome. Thank you.
Mike, Scott, how are you guys doing this Tuesday evening?
Oh, living the dream. It's been like a crazy week and a half, and I'm finally seeing light at the end of the tunnel, so it's getting better. Oh, that's just COVID. You're about to die.
Yeah, don't go towards the light, Scott. Stay with us.
Stay away from the light. Okay. I'll try.
So, Nick, you and I both raced up at I-35 this past weekend. You want to give a little race report on how your weekend went, and I'll chime in a little bit on mine as well.
Oh, mine wasn't too bad. Started, I think, 7th in the heat race and ran up to 3rd, and that put me like 3rd row inside for the feature, and come out of that deal in 3rd. So it wasn't too bad. Track took a little rubber. That's not always the funnest thing to race on, but all in all, I thought it was a pretty good night. It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, for sure. It wasn't you whose nose I chopped in the heat race, was it?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, I was trying to figure out who that was because the track was slicker than I expected going into the heat, and that caught me by surprise. I was trying to get around a slower car, and I know I cut somebody off. Thought it might have been you.
Was you in the first heat or the second?
First heat. We were in the same heat because I remember after that wreck they waved me around you. Because.
Oh yeah, that's right. I got you. I don't remember it if you did, but
well,
if you did, it's all good.
Well, that's good. But yeah, that was actually one of the few times all season that I've been kind of up in your zip code. Managed to, didn't have a great heat race, but managed to work my way up into the top 5 there at the end of the race. And me and I think it was Corey Myers in the 15 were trying to run you down there at the end. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, man, and I'll tell you what, it's a long ways from me to Shattern Turner. Holy shit.
Yeah, it was a long way from all of us to him.
Yeah, that guy's on one.
Yeah, we'll probably touch on that because that later in the show, because that actually ties into one of our discussion topics for the evening. But yeah, he's won, what is that, 4 in a row now at I-35?
Yeah, something crazy like that.
Yeah. But, what goes up must come down. We've seen a lot of streaks like that this season. Maybe it'll be you or me that goes on one next time,
Man, I'm sure gonna try. It's been tough in the win division for me this year anyway. So I keep going though. We'll get her.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, you have your son Cameron, right? Runs in the E-Mods in the E-Mod division.
Yeah, and he actually won Saturday night. That was his 3rd win this year. Yeah, he's been doing really, really well.
I was gonna say he's kind of been showing his old man how to get it done, huh?
Yeah, and that's perfect, dude. I'd much rather. It's pretty crazy, once I've been racing for 15 years and just love race cars and the environment and everything about it, and it's probably the neatest thing that I've ever been a part of in racing throughout my career is watching him not only get his first win, but every single win that he's gotten is just it's the same feeling over and over and over again. It's really, really cool. And I know it's probably, if you don't have kids, or especially don't have kids that race or something like that, it's hard to probably grasp that concept, but it's definitely exciting.
I know Mike for sure at least can relate as far as when his kid was racing karts.
Yeah, we had a good time doing that, and it was always fun. I I did my big car thing, and then after that, we got him into running karts. And the very first, even a heat race win, I remember the very first heat race win. He wasn't very confident in what he was capable of doing, but I knew that he had the ability. It was just a matter of me putting the cart underneath him, that would get him there. And so to see that happen and just see the jubilation on his face, even for just a heat race win, and we went out and won the feature that night too. But nothing beats it.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. We did karts as well. So we'd run at I-35 on Saturday nights, and then they used to have a dirt kart track across the interstate from the Winston truck stop. And so on Sundays, we'd go race karts, and then Saturday nights I'd race my big car, at Winston. It was pretty cool, and same thing, he just took right to it, and it wasn't long. He got his first win. I think he won all of them that year over there, and it was just really cool. We ended up going down to KC Raceway, and I think I can't remember. We never won down there, but we, a couple top threes or something like that. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
That's a tough track out there at KC Raceway. That's actually right down the street from where I'm at, and they're especially now that they made it a bigger track. That's pretty wicked little track for a kart.
Yeah, and he was running Junior 1 at that time, and they didn't have a Junior 1 class, so he had to run with his Junior 1 kart with the Junior 2s, and so that made it even, it was already a big deal for him to go down there, with the hype of all of it, and then on top of that, he did a really good job. I think we went down there twice, and he did a good job both times.
So have you ever had a chance to actually race against him, or is that something that might be in the cards in the future?
So this year at the Bethany Fair, so the EMOD rules for I-35 are a little different than like I guess they call it the MoCan rules or something at like Lakeside, Osborne, Bethany. So anyways, we're gonna put a 4-barrel on his car, and he's gonna race with the B mods at the Bethany Fair.
Oh, nice.
So that'll be really cool.
Well, that's gonna be trial by fire for sure, because I remember being out there a couple of years ago when I was running E-Mod and watching the B-Mod feature out there. Man, those guys, they don't pull any punches, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a pretty well run over your grandma type deal. The fair race always is, and but no, it'll be good. It'll be a good experience for him.
Was that?
Go ahead. What are you gonna do when he whoops your ass?
I'll be just as happy as I would I would actually be more impressed for him to outrun me than for me to outrun him. So yeah, I'm ready for it.
Well, I know running E-Mods last year, I had the opportunity to race against him a few times, and now race against you a few times. So definitely definitely like father, like son. Hopefully he's able to keep running and keep showing you some things.
Yeah, I hope so, man. He's extremely coachable kid. You don't have to tell him very many things. You just kind of he's just so easy to coach. Just give him a couple little pointers, and he just goes straight out there and applies it like he's just been doing it forever. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
How old?
He's only got, I think he ran 10 times last year, and then so really this is his first full season.
It's always nice when they're coachable like that. That's the way my boy was. He had never been in anything like that before, and we went out there and decided to do this thing on a whim. We got offered up a cart, and I asked him if he wanted to do it. He said, sure. We went out and did it, and he had no idea what the hell he was doing. And I just asked him, I said, what do you want the cart to do? And, after 2 races, he was able to tell me what it felt like and what he wanted it to do more of or less of. And I think that's what led to the majority of his success.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's the way. That's kind of the way Cameron is too. He'll and I can brag on him for the rest of the night, but it just like he preps his own race car every week in the shop, at the racetrack. He makes adjustments himself. Just all those things that now obviously there's times where he might be wanting the car to do something different or need more right rear grip or this or that, and he'll come to me. But for the most part, I mean it's almost just racing, pitting beside your buddy. They work on their cars, you work on your cars, and it's amazing to me how fast he's just grasped onto a dirt modified. So
yeah,
now, this is something he grew up around, right?
yeah, he was. So I got my first race car when he was, he would have been, he was still a baby. He's 15 years old and I've been racing 15 years. So he was.
Yeah, that was going to be my
he
next
was a baby
question.
when I got the first one. Yeah, he's been around it a lot his whole life. So.
Yeah, that always helps when they're coming up through is just sitting back and watching for so many years. That helped me tremendously when I started out.
Yeah, those kids, they pay a lot closer attention than you think they do. You think they're just out at the racetrack around with their buddies and being idiots, but it's amazing how much that they can learn just by growing up around it.
Yeah, the cuss words mine picked up were ridiculous.
Yeah.
You sure they didn't pick that up in the home as well, though?
Well, I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
I think Cameron picked most of his up in the shop. So.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to get mad at your kid for cussing when you cuss.
Yeah, people talk a lot about like the creativity that goes into racing, come up with ways to skirt the rules and stuff, but that's nothing compared to the creativity that you can come up with for swears when you drop a chunk of lead on your toe or something.
Yeah.
So you said you've been racing for about 15 years. How much of that was spent in the B mods, and what other kind of divisions have you raced in over that time?
So whenever I first started, the IMCA sport mods had just come to this area. They had already been racing them up in Iowa, but they just worked their way south into northern Missouri. So anyways, that's what I started in, was a IMCA sport mod. And basically, to kind of explain to your listeners what it would be like, we were probably running the speed and the attitude and the looks of a E-mod that might run like 8th. So flat sitting cars, not real fast, weren't backing them into the corner, definitely wasn't running them around there wide open. It was, racing's changed a lot. So anyways, I started in that class, raced that IMCA Sport Mod deal up until, I believe, 2011. I had a guy buy me a stock car, IMCA stock car, and I ran the Sport Mod and stock car both. And got done with the stock car deal, went back to the Sport Mod stuff, and that's about the time that they were making the transition from IMCA to USRA. So that in itself is a step up. So ran a USRA B mod for a while. Teamed up with a buddy of mine, Clint Baker. He got injured on a dirt bike and couldn't drive. So I drove his B mod for a year. Had a lot of success with him.
I didn't realize you were close with Clint. That's pretty cool. He's definitely a cool dude that one of the cooler guys I've had a chance to meet at the racetrack.
Oh yeah. Me and Clint are pretty much best friends. I drove for him and Stacy for about 3 years, and we put a USRA mod together, ran that for a full, well, 3/4 of a season, and then of course he got to feeling better, and he's back in his own stuff now, and I'm still beating around in the B mod class. So that's pretty much my career in a nutshell, anyway, as far as what all I've drove. But,
Do you run a crate or you run an open motor?
So I started out the season on a crate. I actually just switched to my open motor about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I have all three options. I've got a crate motor, I've got a 602 crate, and then I've got this open motor that I'm running now. And then like the E-mod motors, like my boy runs, they are pretty much a concept engine for the B-mod class.
Yep. Slap a 4-barrel on that, you got yourself a concept motor.
Yep, take the 2-barrel off, put a 4-barrel on. So I have all three options, but I'm on the open motor now.
So, did you go to the open motor for a specific reason, or was it?
Yeah, basically because I was getting my ass kicked by open motors. I started I really wanted to win with my crate, and just because you rarely see that in the USRA B mod stuff these days. I mean, I know there's a few guys out there doing it once in a while, but for the most part, it's a concept engine or an open motor that's winning these races.
Great motor
And
stuff.
yeah, here's the thing. They're extremely drivable, and they're extremely consistent. So I guess what I mean by that is, like, we set out this year, both of us, to run for a championship. So when you do that on a schedule like I-35 has, where you race, 9-10 months out of the year, you have to have something that's extremely reliable and extremely consistent. So that's why I put my crate in, and man, for like a month straight, I would get through my heat races really well, start on the front row, and then just get my shit blown away by an open motor. So I put my open motor in, and I still haven't won. So I don't know, maybe I didn't do the right thing.
I always felt like the open motor, like on restarts and stuff, felt like it had more torque. But if you were on a bigger track or a more heavy track, hammer down track, it just seems like the open motors are quite a bit better.
Yeah, in the moisture for sure. If you've got a really, really good open motor, built to the max within the rules, it's just, with a crate, you're only going to get so much.
Yeah.
And the first thing that comes to mind is, well, I'll tighten the car up so I can drive it harder, or I'll tighten the car up so that I can do this or that, and it just slows your lap times down. You have to keep the race car so loose.
Yep.
For a crate motor that it really is now. It didn't used to be this way, but now it really is taking a knife to a gunfight. It really is.
Yeah,
well,
go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I'm not super familiar with USRA. I'm more IMCA, but I know for me, IMCA, they kind of make the rules so a crate has an advantage, and a lot of the IMCA tracks get seriously dry slick. But USRA, it seems like maybe they don't like the crates as much, so that their rules maybe favor, or the tracks maybe favor the open motors a little more.
Well, the major difference that you'll notice between them is in IMCA, and I've raced IMCA a lot in my career, so I don't want you to think that I'm bashing them, because I'm not.
That's okay. These guys bash IMCA all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. So here's what I feel like. They kind of put you inside this box, and you have to run springs on top of the housing. You have to run a pan hard bar. you have to do this, you have to do that. Spring or shocks have to be on the back of the housing. Just they put everybody in the same box, and so that's why a crate motor prevails better in that box. Now you switch over to USRA where you can use your imagination. You know, you can, for the most part, you can do whatever you want to on the rear suspension. J-bars, sliders, slider in front, slider on top, slider behind.
Yeah,
I mean,
long,
all
as
these
long as it's
different
a 3 link,
options
basically.
to hook that motor up, you know, to hook your bigger motor up. So that's why, I think that's why you see the bigger motors, the open motors, prevail more in USRA than you do IMCA.
Gotcha.
What concerns me with like the various engine packages is you have, you know, so you got 3 options, like you said. You got the crate, you got the concept, and you got the open motor. Well, I see a lot of guys that are running the quote unquote concept package, and that they put a 4-barrel on their motor. But I haven't been in tech, you know, yet this season. I don't know how many. I'm sure you've been in there several times, Nick. I don't know that they're checking things well enough to make sure that guys aren't just slapping a 4-barrel on an open motor and calling it a concept, because there's a lot of rules that you have to follow for it to be called a concept or for it to actually meet the requirements to be a concept motor. And when you see somebody, you know, that's supposedly following all these rules walk you on the straightaway when you got an open motor and they got a concept, that makes me suspicious.
Well, if you
Are you saying that people might be cheating, John?
I'm not naming names, but possibly.
This in itself is a new concept for racing.
Yeah.
No way.
So I will tell you this. Coming from a crate motor with a 4-barrel to an open motor with a 2-barrel, there's a big difference just in 4-barrel versus 2-barrel. So you guys mentioned torque earlier. I would take torque over horsepower any day of the week.
Absolutely.
You know, because like you said, restarts, pulling up out of the turn. You know.
Yeah, especially.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially at I-35 with the way it's shaped.
But if you're on a large track, you're not going to get to utilize that torque as often.
Yeah. That's with I-35 being kind of paperclip shaped. It really is it values torque over peak horsepower for sure, because you got your difference between your cornering speed and your straightaway speeds is a lot bigger than it would be at like a more kind of donut shaped track.
Yeah, or a place like Lakeside or Moberly or something like that, where a 2-barrel, you can have a 450 or 60 horse open 2-barrel motor, and it's still got a 2-barrel on it. And to me, 2-barrel racing is about momentum. And so you'll see a lot of guys like Chase Galvin or Shadron Turner, or I can name a whole bunch of guys that really don't ever break momentum. If you watch videos of them or ride behind them or something like, they never get their cars super out of shape, and they're usually middle to top of the racetrack, just driving their race cars around there.
Yep.
And then you got idiots like me who's trying to slam it in on the bottom and breaking all kinds of momentum and stuff like that. Well, it's hard to do that with a 2-barrel, with an open 2-barrel motor, I think.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder about this motor that I put together. It would be cool to get it on a dyno one of these days and see what it's actually doing. As it is an open motor, by the rules, but being that it was built by some idiot that doesn't know what he's doing, who knows what the actual characteristics of the motor are. But I noticed like this past week, like you were talking about, everybody was just kind of around the top keeping their momentum up, and that the only way you can pass in that situation is to go where they aren't and to try to throw it down to the bottom. But that's so hard to do.
Yeah, that's like, take me and Lonnie Hibner, for example. He was, he started outside of me. Or actually, I think he started in front of me. But anyways, got outside before I did. And then, and then from the middle up towards the top was starting to take rubber, and then just took more rubber the longer we went on. I felt like, and so anyways, you wear your car out, you know, trying to work the middle to the bottom. I could run side by side with him. I ran side by side with him for half the race, and then next thing you know, we get that late restart, 5 to go, whatever it was, and he just drove away from me. Well, you know, he's in the rubber and I'm not, and I mean, there's a lot of things there, but I don't know. I don't think that had I had my crate motor in with my 4-barrel, I don't think I would have done any better or any worse than I did. You know.
Well, that's I guess speaks to the fact that they have done a pretty decent job, at least, of balancing them.
Yeah, I think they really have, and I mean, where it's at right now is in the concept department, and I don't know. I'm sure there's guys out there that are just throwing 4-barrels on there, you know, putting a hydraulic cam in their open motor and putting a 4-barrel on it and say, "Come find me," you know. But
do they not?
I don't know.
Real well there.
I feel like it's off and on. You know, when they do tech, like this past Saturday night, for example, they checked all the bar links on the rear end. Week before they pulled distributors. Week before that, pulled valve covers. Checked installed spring height. Checked, you know, if you were on a concept, it better have stock rocker arms on it because it's supposed to be a hydraulic lift motor. Just little things like that. So if a guy was, let's say a guy had a flat tappet open motor and was just throwing a 4-barrel on it, they'd catch it.
Right.
They really would. Now, if he's trying to be sneaky and has a hydraulic lift cam in his open motor, it would be, you know, they got to dig further than just the valve covers to find it.
So do they pump them, cube check them?
They haven't pumped me this year, and I've been in tech pretty much every night this year. I think I've got maybe 4 or 5 where I wasn't in tech, but no, they haven't pumped anybody. That's a whole nother deal, though. You know, that's cubic inch.
Well,
what they're checking there.
I mean, if I was gonna cheat an open motor, I mean, I'd throw some lightweight components in there, and you know, if they're
absolutely
not going to check that stuff, then
yeah, and that's always a huge debate, you know, at any racetrack is so like let's go down this road. So the IMCA Super Nationals are coming up.
Yep.
Man, have you ever raced the IMCA Super Nationals?
Yeah.
So, what was tech like pre-tech, when you rolled through the tent just for pre-tech? What did you think of that?
Bullshit.
Well, I've never had very good luck with tech at Super Nationals for whatever reason. But like
Usually you're cheating.
Yeah. All that winning I was doing, I can see why they thought it was.
Right.
But like one year, I got in line super early, and like they checked my head. I had to pull a valve cover off. They checked my head, make sure I had an IMCA legal head. They checked my suspension. They checked my carb, and then they made me move my ignition box because I had my ignition box mounted on my dash on the passenger side.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that I could reach over there during the race and pull the chip out, and then when the race was over, hurry up and reach over there and put it back in. So I got in my car in the seat, and I put my belts on, and I tried to reach it. And I was like, now, I'm like almost 2 feet away.
Yeah.
How do you think I'm going to do that? Oh, it's doable, he told me. So,
yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but it's not exactly easy to just move your ignition box.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, rewire it all, you know.
Yeah. So I spent half a damn day rewiring my ignition box and I went out in my heat race, and they took the top two to the feature, and I got second. And then they pulled my chip and tested my chip, and my chip wasn't working. So the whole ignition thing fucked me. Because
and so let's do this. So how many times were you in Tech that season before you went to Super Nationals?
In Des Moines, it was probably every other week.
So that answers the whole question, right? Tech is a problem.
Tech is a huge problem.
Yeah,
but dude, I know people that. I know somebody specifically at Super Nationals that runs a stock car 3 years ago that had a completely illegal motor. I mean, without a doubt. And he made it through Tech. Made it to and ended up finishing 10th in the big camp.
Well, here's the thing.
With an ultra lightweight crank, non-stamped rods, like
they make your rods even be stamped?
On the 500 2-barrel option, they do.
Oh man, IMCA got to have a stamp on everything.
It would basically be like a USRA B mod open motor. That type of rule with one more point of compression than what we can run.
Yeah, 10.5 to 1.
Yep.
See, when I was doing this was before the whole crate motor thing came along, and we went up to Super Nationals one year in stock car with a Ford.
Mm-hmm.
We spent 4 hours in Tech because Niehaus did not know what the fuck he was looking at.
Yeah, he's a dick. I can't stand him.
He pulled. We basically ended up with a fucking engine in a box by the time we got out of the goddamn Tech tent.
Yeah. I used to run when I first started, I ran a Mopar. And I ran Mopars for 4 or 5 years, 5 or 6 years, whatever. And they really start scratching their heads.
Well, that's like
the Smith brothers, wasn't it?
Yeah, one of the Smith brothers ran a 360 Mopar in a stock car and went out there and waxed them.
Oh yeah.
And then,
yeah, they build really good torque. A Mopar motor builds really good torque.
Well, they have really good stock cylinder heads.
Yeah.
And so the very next year, they outlawed the cylinder heads on his engine.
Yeah, and the intake. We used to be able to run a Victor 340 intake, which was basically like a Victor Junior Chevrolet intake.
Yep.
They outlawed that too.
Anything that would make it so you got to buy an IMCA stamped part.
Yeah, or just get you back on the beaten Chevy path,
Yeah, so they don't have to learn what to look for, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's the whole thing behind it is, these guys don't know what the hell they're looking for. They VA shit, become a tech guy, and it doesn't cover any of the Ford, Chrysler, or anything like that. It's all fucking small block Chevy.
So I'll give you a quick IMCA story. The last season that I ran IMCA was 2017, and I won 7 features that year. Led the points at US 36 and Bethany all year. So I was in Tech every weekend, and feeling really good about Super Nationals. I took a week off before Super Nationals. Did nothing but go over that race car, front to back, top to bottom. Even if it looked like it needed changed, I changed it. And we got up to the Tech tent at Super Nationals, the pre-Tech tent.
Yep.
Right. And keep in mind, I've been in the Tech area all year.
Yep.
They didn't like my ball joints because they were a screw-in type ball joint. So basically, I had to cut the retainers, the screw-in retainers, out of my A-arms, put these stupid press-in slides in there that are the exact same thing as the screw-in slides.
Yeah, they're just a bigger pain in the ass to deal with.
Dude, and it was raining, muddy, a shit mess, and I'm walling around, and keep in mind, I've just spent a week going completely through this thing, making sure every little thing's right, you know, caster, camber, toe, all that shit.
Yep.
And here I've got the front end of my race car scattered in the mud. And I was just pissed.
Yep.
And you know, Dave Brin was one of the guys in the tent, and I looked at him like, Dave, he personally had teched my race car 2 or 3 times that year.
Never said a word about it.
Never said a word about, I mean, it would have been so easy.
Yep.
To be like, hey, you can't run those ball joints. Fix them, or whatever, DQ me, whatever. But, man, I was just so mad. So anyways, got all that done. Went through the whole rigmarole. Got everything right. The week, you know, we finished on Wednesday night. And so I was sitting 11th in overall points for last chance points. They were taking the top 6. To me, that's a really good shot of getting in, right?
Yep.
So it rains, and you know they postpone the races and this and that, and they end up taking the first 6 starters in that last chance qualifier. So the first 6 guys on the grid, you're locked into the big show. The rest of you have a good week. Dude, I was so mad. And from that point on, I'm like, I'm not racing IMCA. I'm taking a break from IMCA, and I'm not going back to Super Nationals.
Yeah, I'm surprised more guys haven't taken that stance after all the bullshit you go through. Even at your weekly tracks, not just Super Nationals, but your weekly track, you go through that bullshit, and after
it pays nothing.
When they tech you, they half-ass it. So then you feel like your car's legal. You, like you said, you go to Super Nationals, you find out that you can't do this, you can't do that, and it's just a giant fucking headache. That's all IMCA is.
Yeah, and you spend all this money to get ready to go, then to get up there, only to find out, okay, now I don't have any of this shit with me. I got to go buy all this shit that I got to have.
Yep.
And then they, you know, I just felt like I got chopped off at the knees on the last chance. It left a big nasty taste in my mouth. But I'll tell you something else I don't like about IMCA. The stupid, where like if you're the lead point average guy, your ass is starting 12th every week. Fuck that.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. You know, they talked about doing that in the E-mods, not last year, but 2 years ago when I forget who it was. It was the Ainsworth's nephew, runs an A-mod now.
Yeah, Chris Mercer.
Chris Mercer, yeah, he won like 9 races in a row in the E-mods there that year, and they were talking about making him start at the back. And I think that's when he just sold his E-mod and bought an A-mod instead. But
yeah.
But yeah, I guess you're, with you being the point leader up there at I-35, you're lucky they're not having you do that every week.
Man, it would just be so. I mean, you race B mods, and you know, at some point in time, you got to start in the back of that feature, dude. Can you imagine if some of them guys started, like, let's take 4 of those guys that run in the back and put them first, second, third, and fourth and run it. I mean, and we're all going to run wide open into turn 1 and 2. Are you shitting me?
Ain't none of you motherfuckers going to finish.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And that's what it was like week in and week out when I ran IMCA.
Yeah, we had
the only time I'd get to start further forward than that is like some new guy showed up or a guy with no point average would show up, and then I'd get to move up a couple spots. But
so that actually ties in really good to one of the discussion topics that I had for this evening, and that's so it's been kind of a season of where, you know, all kinds of different racing. It seems like one guy or one team or a couple of guys or teams have been dominating. You know, whether it be like Kyle Larson going on this historic streak in sprint cars, or like Harvick and Hamlin in the Cup Series, or I mean, you know, Lewis Hamilton in F1. That's not really anything new. But you know, or like you look at I-35. You know, you got Keller's won like 10 races in the stock cars, and Kerry Davis has won 12 in the late models. So at what point, and this is kind of the question that I'm posing to the group, at what point does dominance because like at some point it's exciting to see somebody go on a streak. At what point does it cross the barrier from being good for the sport and an exciting thing to being boring or taking things away? And should the tracks or the sanctioning bodies do something to keep it from getting to that point?
Now, I feel like, if there's a guy out there dominating week in and week out for, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks, you should really step in and do something. Make them go to the back, but throw something at them for it. Say, hey, here's an extra $200 if you go to the back and you can go up here and win the thing, or you can go up here and, here's an extra 100 if you can go up and finish in the top 5, whatever. You've got to keep the excitement there. I don't think it's a matter of the excitement goes away when they win. It's just a matter they get to get up there and then nobody else has a fucking chance. And I think that's the biggest thing that puts a bad taste in people's mouth about that kind of stuff.
That's why I like Ricky Thornton. I never really formed an opinion of him in any way until last year. He won like every night in Boone, and he himself. What?
I said, and Stewart.
Yeah, he himself, like, he wanted competition, so he was like wanting to get more mod guys up to Boone and Stewart, and he's offering to pay their way in, and started adding money to the purse. And so I went to Boone the one night other than Super Nationals last year, and he was going to start on the pole, and they asked him if he wanted to start at the tail for an extra $1,000, and he didn't even hesitate.
Like an extra $1,000 if he were to win?
Yep. And dude, it was like a Kyle Larson deal. He started dead last, and with like 3 laps to go, he took the lead.
And that's why I don't think dominance is a bad thing. That's a situation I don't think dominance is a bad thing.
Well, if you don't have it, then for me, it always was like, if somebody was just killing me every week, that just motivated me to want to do better.
Right.
Yeah, that's where I stand on it. So it's one thing to offer up more money to the dominant guy to go to the back, and it's a totally different thing to say, well, you've won a lot of races, so you have to start in the back.
Right.
I don't know how you punish a guy, like, let's just say, we'll just use Kerry Davis for an example, because he's won a bunch of late model races here. So how do you go to him and be like, man, I know you've been doing this racing deal your entire life. I know you know a lot about it, and I know you guys bust your ass all week, work hard in the shop to make sure your car is a winning car every time you show up. I'm going to punish you for coming to my track and winning races. Man, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it's definitely not. It's certainly not a fair way of looking at it. In a fair world, the guy that's the fastest driver with the fastest car is going to win.
Yeah, and I think if you get your ass beat by those guys week in and week out,
you've got some work to do. You're doing something wrong.
So, like, let's take me and John for example. In my opinion, Shattering Turner's kicked our ass for the last 4 weeks. Dude, he's not going to keep winning. If it ain't me, someone else is working just as hard to beat him. And when we do, it's going to mean more. So I just think it makes everybody else work harder. And when someone else does win, it makes it mean so much more than just another win. You know what I'm saying?
And then that's going to make that guy that was winning all the time, he's going to get pissed off, and he's going to work that much harder.
Yeah, just wait till a guy like, and Shattering's a good friend of mine. I don't want you to think I'm not talking shit on him at all. I never would. But he's a really good friend of mine. Well, here's why I can't. Because him and his dad are cool as fuck, and they're not a big budget team. They're freaking 2 kick-ass dudes from St. Joe who do it the right way, and they just work on their shit. You know what I mean?
Those are my favorite ones.
Yeah, and that's why I'm a huge. Now, Andy Bryant, down at Lakeside, I don't know if you've been paying any attention to that. Fuck that kid. You know what I mean? Somebody does need to knock him off his high horse. But
he goes down to Wheatland and runs pretty good down there too.
Oh yeah. Now you take like Chris Jackson, for example. Let's talk about him. That guy belongs in a freaking A mod, and he's just running around kicking the shit out of all of us B mod guys. You know, he for what they have in their program, they could run a top 5 modified program. They just choose not to. So it is a slippery slope, and you gotta look at it at a couple different ways. But
so here's one thing I think is interesting, and I don't know how much any of you guys follow any kind of like sports car racing or endurance racing or anything like that, but where they have like a what they call balance of performance, or BOP, which is in that context, it works to balance cars that are completely different. You know, like you might have like a mid-engine car competing against a rear-wheel drive car, or a V6 competing against a turbocharged 4-cylinder competing against a V8. So they almost have to have some kind of system where if one platform is more dominant than others, they have to be able to balance it out. But there's in some series like that, they run what they call success ballast, which is where, like, for every race that you win, you know, it's usually measured in kilograms because they're a bunch of damn commies. But for every race that you win, you get 10 kilograms or whatever extra ballast added to your car. I wonder sometimes if it's not ideal, obviously, but especially in like a class where the rules are really strict, and yet someone still finds a way to dominate all the time, to where somebody, they're just doing it by spending money. Like, for example, like pure stocks. If you're not cheating, the only way you're building a faster pure stock is you're buying nicer, newer parts, and you're replacing them more often, and you're a faster driver. But maybe some class like that where it's intended to be economical, and you don't want to encourage guys to go out there and buy new parts all the time and spend a shitload of money on their car. Maybe somewhere like that, it might make sense to have something like that where, the guy who wins all the time has to weigh, 100 or 200 pounds more or whatever, and see if that makes a difference.
But they also, the biggest difference there is that there's two things to that I feel. One, those races are much longer, and so it's a full team sport, and it becomes more about strategy than anything. Strategy and fuel economy and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. And over the course of a 2-hour stint, say, a few pounds of extra weight is going to make a lot more difference in fuel consumption and tire wear than it's going to make in a 12-lap feature on a dirt track.
Right. And the other thing is when you do stuff like that, I feel like that's exactly what they've done to the IMCAA mods. 90% of the IMCAA mod races that I've watched in the last couple years, especially at Boone, which that's most classes because Boone's hard to pass because the track is fucking weird. The dirt, who knows what the hell all is in that dirt. But I just feel like the cars they're very follow the leader. It's hard for them to pass. And I feel like it's because they've made the cars so spec-like that that's what you get.
Do you think a system like that? So maybe I think we can agree it maybe wouldn't be the right solution for your local dirt track. But do you think something like that could carry over into NASCAR or into World of Outlaws or into Formula One or something like that to make the racing better?
I think on the mainstream racing, yeah, because you have a huge fan base that makes the world go round. And if the races are always going to be boring, nobody's going to watch them. So, no, I'm not a fan of it because I just feel like competition, like we already talked about it. If somebody's beating me, I want to know why, and I want to do what I have to do so they don't beat me anymore. And I just feel like on the dirt side of it, if you want to be fast, and I think we've talked about this before, even outside of the podcast, is that you have to be touching your car every single night you're not on the track. You got to be doing maintenance. You got to be trying stuff with setups. These guys they're out there kicking your ass every week. That's what they're doing. I guarantee it.
Yeah, there's nobody. You can't be stagnant in this sport. Period.
Yeah. Yes. Take my son for example. That kid works on his race car. Well, school just started, so it's changed now. But all summer long, that kid works on his race car 4 or 5 nights a week, guys. I mean, so if you're one of those E-Mod guys who your shit's sitting on the trailer till Saturday morning, you kick the tires on it, spray a hose, spray some water on it, and then put the battery charger on it, my son's going to beat you.
Yep.
Because he's prepared.
Exactly.
And here's something else that I think gets thought about wrong is, so when someone is dominant, most racers, or a lot of racers, will think about them instead of thinking about how their own car could be faster. So I'll just use me versus Shadron. And so like Saturday night, I'm rolling around the racetrack. He's steadily getting further and further away from me. And I'm not paying attention or worrying about, is that guy cheating? What's that guy doing? I'm paying attention to where on the racetrack he's actually faster than me.
Yep.
Because if you stop and pay attention, you can see it. Okay, well, I'll work on this area of the racetrack to get faster right here, and he won't be faster than me anymore. And I think that's a lost art. People are too quick to be like, well, he's kicking the dog shit out of us week in, week out, he's cheating. I don't know about that.
Well, and I don't know as though a lot of people go to the whole cheating right off the bat. They're saying he's got better equipment than I do. And so they're automatically wanting to spend money. They're wanting to throw money at it versus look at what you can do in the car, on the track, in the garage to make yourself better. And like you said, pick up on where he's faster than you. Is he faster than you down the straightaway, or is he getting into or off the corner better, or even through the corner?
Yeah. So like
generally going to be off the corner, center off,
center out. Yep. 90% of the time, center out. But yeah, it's just neat. It just competition is a neat thing. It brings out the best in people and it brings out the worst in people, and I love it. I like both sides of it. So.
Me too. That's why I like not racing the last few years. I've paid more attention to exactly what you're talking about. I've watched people's cars, and I'm like, take Mike Nichols or Murdy, those guys in those stock cars. I noticed they can drive their car in so much deeper and get it woed up so much better than most average people. And I'm like, how do they do that?
And the thing is, they're so smooth about it, and they keep the car so straight.
Yeah, if I do it, I'll just drive off the track or spin out.
It's almost like they just drive through the corner, but they're so fast about doing it, and it just blows your mind.
Well, Murdy's got all that roll speed.
Well, yeah, and we were talking about that with Dallin Murdy up there at Marshalltown last weekend. How he was getting into the corner a car length deeper than everybody else, but he was able to just roll through it and keep his momentum, and everybody else is out there just sliding and doing everything they can to hang on. And he just split 2 guys like it was nothing, like they weren't even there, and he just rolled right on past them.
Yeah, he's just keeping the right rear tire in the racetrack, where them other guys are sliding it, asshole over tea kettle or something like that is what I call it. But yeah,
I think a lot of them are running such a stiff left rear spring and shock that they don't realize that they're getting that right rear out of the track when they do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's just due to how they see those guys just rolling around them. I mean, literally, they drive in the corner hard in the car, and then just drive the corner straight as possible. Like there's no sliding at all.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of things, like especially with the E-mods that a guy can talk about. Like how the top 4 I mean, you don't have to go very, you don't have to watch very long. The top 4 people, my son's one of those top 4 I'm getting ready to talk shit on. They're a straightaway ahead of the rest of the field. Well, that should tell me and my son and the rest of them, I'm not going to name names, everyone knows who they are, they don't belong in that class next year, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that was part of the reason.
The top 4, and it's not. Nobody can say, well, we can't afford an IMCA Sport Mod. You already have one.
Right, and that was one of the reasons why I moved up out of that class. Not because I was dominating like that, but because you knew that those people were that some of those people, let's say, were not going to move up. So what's the point in sticking around, right?
Well, and so let's rewind and go back to the first year I started racing, or the first year you started racing, and you were one of those 9th, 10th place cars, and dude, you didn't feel like you had a snowball's chance in hell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because these guys, Matt Dorson was banging around in that class his entire life. That is what hurts. You talk about dominance, that's one thing, but that's what hurts. It breaks the spirit of, because, let's face it, some of them guys they can't put new tires on the race car every other week or whatever. And sometimes it is laziness, but there's some guys out there who are busting their ass and they're running 6th.
Yep, it happens.
They're running 6th on rear tires that got on them.
It's got 20 nights on it.
And maybe they have new tires on there and they're still running 6, but it's because their dad or their uncle or their grandpa or whoever don't know shit about race cars.
Yeah.
I was one of those kids. I was one of those guys.
Hey, that reminds me. Do you think you could help John Ross make his car faster?
Probably.
I don't know if he wants to do that.
Well, I was looking at lap times and he's getting closer. I do know that.
We bought him some new tires and wheels, so hopefully that'll help. They were out of talent when I got that stuff, so I didn't buy any of that.
Well, I know how that feels.
Yeah.
I've run out of talent several times this season.
No, I mean the Motorsports warehouse was out of talent. We couldn't buy you anymore.
I don't think they've ever had any.
Oh.
You can only buy that on the black market.
I saw it on the website.
They got Bill Davis Jr.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You got to buy that shit on the black market. They take it from little Asian kids that are really good at go-karts and squeeze it out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they can fix your cell phone if it's broke.
Well, anyway, before we get too far off on the weeds, we're kind of getting to the end of the show here. Nick, do you have any sponsors? Speaking of people that have helped us out and stuff, and I really appreciate that, by the way, to my fellow TBD guys. Mike or Nick, you got any sponsors you want to thank or that kind of thing?
Yeah, I got quite a few. So, Dean Ray at Dean's Auto Body, he helps me and my son out in all sorts of ways. And then Hibner Logging, the Hibner boys, Hometown Title in Bethany, Lama Excavating, HD Auto LLC, just everybody, the people that come to the pits and help us, and just there's a lot of them, and I appreciate all of them. So.
Right on, man. Well, it's been really fun having you on the podcast. I mean, we have a good time racing against each other each week. Although usually you're a ways up the track, like you said. I'm getting closer, so maybe one of these days we'll be banging doors. But
keep digging, man. Keep digging. I welcome it.
I appreciate it. But Mike, Scott, again, as always, good having you guys on the show. It's been a fun time. Anybody have any closing thoughts before we sign off for the evening?
Not that I can think of. It was a pleasure talking with you, Nick. Next time you're out there running around John, make sure and put a little rubber on his door.
Yeah. When you lap him, wave when you go by.
Yeah, I'll try.
We'll hopefully me and Mike will get down to another race this year, and we'll come over and introduce ourselves.
Hey,
For
dude,
sure.
every week after the race is over, we got food and beer, so just stop by the trailer and we'll bullshit till the sun comes up.
You had me at Hey Dude.
Yes,
All right.
You had me at beer. Except
Come
I
on
gotta
by,
drive my
boys.
hauler home, so you know, it's what I call the open trailer.
There you go.
That's what Andrew's for.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, A, he's not there half the time, and B, when he is there, he's the one that's drinking the beer. So
With a hairdo like that, I'd be drinking the beers too.
hey, I got a haircut yesterday.
You should have got them all cut. You look like a fucking homo.
All right. Well,
is the caterpillar still alive?
yeah, you know, it's I trimmed it a little bit, but it's still there.
Kyle Petty called.
I had some ground clearance issues with the splitter there. I had to you know make a bump stop adjustment.
Yeah, Kyle Petty called and said you look like hell.
Coming from him.
He would know.
Yeah, for sure. Kyle Petty looked at it and said, "What the fuck was that?" But anyway, so next week, real quick before we sign off, next week gonna be back to our normal day and time, Monday at 7. Gonna have Dave and Murph Granger on the show. Dave races a pure stock up at I-35. He's got a really cool story to tell everybody about how that deal came about, where his car came from. So I won't spoil that, but it's going to be another cool father-son team. What was that?
I said, was it Ned Jarrett?
No, he didn't. He didn't buy the car on fake credit and then have to win the race in order to pay for it. But so it's not quite that good, but it's pretty good. Oh,
We've all been there.
yeah. I still need to pay my graphics guy.
That can wait till the off season.
Yeah, you know. All right, well, guys, really appreciate it. Thanks for doing the show, and Nick, I'll see you out on the track on Saturday. Till then, have a good evening.
Sounds
Good
good.
night,
See you.
fellas.
See you later.
You too.
Bye.